Hello, this is Professor Burrows for Criminal Justice 501, Pro Seminar and Professional Writing in Criminology and Criminal Justice. Today we're going to discuss revising and refining the first draft. After having written the first draft, you'll want to review it considering the following guidelines. Guideline 1. Put the first draft aside and reread it after a couple days. Material that seemed clear when it was written will often seem less so when it is reread a couple of days later. Guideline 2. Check the structure of each paragraph. Keep it simple. The purpose of scientific writing is to communicate information clearly and unambiguously. Thus, it is perfectly acceptable in scientific writing to write paragraphs that follow the simplest model for paragraph writing. Write a topic sentence first, and then write the sentences that provide details that support the material in that topic sentence. Ensure that only sentences that support the topic sentence comprise that paragraph. Stick to one idea per paragraph. Guideline 3. Consider breaking long paragraphs into two or more shorter ones. Long paragraphs can be difficult to follow. Often, the material in a long paragraph can be more effectively presented in two or more shorter ones. For instance, instead of using one very long paragraph to discuss a relevant theory, consider using three. First, a paragraph to define and illustrate the theory. Second, a paragraph to discuss literature that supports the theory. And third, a paragraph to discuss literature that casts doubt on the theory. Guideline 4. Be sure to use transitional terms between paragraphs and within paragraphs. The following example shows the beginnings of three sequential paragraphs in a literature review. Notice how the transitional terms, which are italicized in bold, help make transitions from one paragraph to the next. The beginning of three paragraphs, 2 and 3, contain transitional items italicized in bold. A considerable body of theory suggests that elected public officials in a democracy have reason to pay attention to public opinion. Rational choice theorists, for example, have long argued that. Empirically, too, there is substantial scholarly evidence of rather close connection between citizens' opinions. Moreover, there has been an enormous increase in policy-related polls and surveys of public opinion. In his book on rhetoric and style in writing, Harris makes a number of suggestions regarding the use of transitional terms, 4 of which are shown below. First, use transitions between paragraphs to signal connections, addition, contrast, and so forth, between idea segments. Use transitions within paragraphs to signal a change from one sentence to another or from one section of the paragraph to another. 2. Use sufficient transitions to provide coherence, holding together like glue, and continuity, making the thought process easy to follow. Less experienced writers tend to supply too few transitions. 3. Avoid using too many strong transitions. Be careful to avoid littering your writing with howevers and nevertheless. Strong transitions should be used sparingly, or else they lose their effect. 4. Transitions become stronger when they are placed at the beginning or end of a sentence, and milder or less strong when they're moved into the middle of the sentence. Generally, moving transitions into the sentence is the better choice. Below are examples of transitional terms which Harris classified according to function, addition, comparison, etc., as well as according to strength, i.e., milder or stronger. These are typically used to make transitions within paragraphs or between sentences to make the overall paragraph flow smoothly and logically and showing the connections between ideas and sentences. Transitions to show addition, and here's a list of milder transitions to show addition that you can reference as needed. Here's a list of stronger transitions used to show addition that you can reference as needed. Again, comparison in the milder form, and stronger comparison transitions. Contrast, milder, and contrast, stronger. Time, milder, and time, stronger. To show purpose, milder and stronger. Place, milder and stronger. Result, milder and stronger. The preceding transitions can be used for you to reference as needed throughout the writing and revising of your paper. Guideline 5. Double-check the number of headings in your paper. Make sure that there are a sufficient number of headings and subheadings to guide the reader through the review. As a general rule, Be generous in the use of headings and subheadings. Also, be sure to double check the APA formatting for the different levels of heading, and you can see pages 62 to 63 in the APA publication manual for guidelines on formatting the levels of heading. Guideline 6. Double check that cited material has been referenced correctly. Check that each in-text citation in the body of the review has a corresponding citation in the reference list to be sure that none of the references have been omitted. Also, be sure that each reference citation is cited in the body of the text to ensure that none have been included when they should not. Guideline 7. Check for the overuse of quotations. As previously discussed, quotations should be used very sparingly in a literature review. When revising, reconsider each quotation to determine whether its content could be as effectively presented in a paraphrase. Guideline 8. Check for the overuse of rhetorical questions. A rhetorical question is one that the writer answers immediately, or in other words, is not a question the reviewer expects readers to answer. Too many rhetorical questions can be distracting and unprofessional. Stronger writing uses declarative statements rather than rhetorical questions. The example below shows the use of a rhetorical question at the beginning of the paragraph and a better fix for it. What does research say about the validity of the DOE anxiety scale? The research on this question is extensive, in perhaps the most comprehensive study to date, A better revision would be research on the validity of the DOE anxiety scale is extensive, and then you would continue with your paragraph. Guideline 9. Deleting truisms. A truism is something all educated individuals probably know and believe. As such, truisms add no important information to a literature review. The first sentence in the following example is a truism that should be deleted. Without a doubt, good nutrition is very important. The 1990 Nutrition Labeling and Education Act requires food manufacturers to ... To fix this, we would simply delete the truism and begin by getting straight to the data. Scientific writing is serious writing, and readers will be interested in a serious analysis of the material on the topic. Attempts to be clever or amusing will detract from this. Guideline 11. Delete anecdotal material. Sometimes reviewers describe personal incidents or other anecdotes. This is one of the weakest forms of scientific evidence and should be avoided. In other words, we don't care what your Uncle Joe says or what you have experienced. We care what the evidence shows in scientific writing. Guideline 12. Make sure the tone is neutral and non-emotional. Statements designed to appeal to emotions are not appropriate for literature reviews or scientific writing in general. Guideline 13. Cite multiple sources for a single point. For example, recently, improvement in physical activity has become the focus of asthma treatment programs because mounting evidence suggests that childhood obesity is a risk factor for the development of asthma. Story 2007, Walters Abramson, Wombolt, Current Everett, and Zhang 2009, Wang and Hung 2009. Please recall that this is the rule rather than the exception in writing a literature review. This is what creates the necessary synthesis and shows the scientific consensus on your topic. Guideline 14. Avoid long strings of references for a single point. So while we want to show multiple sources for a single point, we have to avoid long strings. We want to differentiate between sources when a long string of references support a single point. For example, you would not want to do the following. Numerous evaluations have indicated that program X is superior to program Y. Black 2011, Blacksmith 2013, Doe 2012, Hines 2011 and 2012, Jones 2013, Lindsay and Jones 2011, Sheridan Washington 2012, Smith 2011, Solis 2012, Williams 2012. Instead, we want to differentiate among the sources whenever possible. So instead of listing them as one long string for a somewhat generic point as before, we would revise it so that it looks something like this. Numerous evaluations have indicated that program X is superior to program Y. Specifically, program X appears to be superior in terms of student retention, Doe 2012, Smith 2011, student attitudes, Black 2011, Jones 2013, Solis 2012, and achievement of short-term goals, Williams 2012, and long-term goals, Blacksmith 2013, Hines 2011 and 2012, Lindsay and Jones 2013, Sheridan Washington 2012. So here we've differentiated among the evidence and the research studies, and we've included more detail for a more comprehensive overview as well. We can also use EGC, or in other words, for example, C, to break up long strings of sources for a single point if the point is very general and no differentiations can be made. This indicates that only some of the possible references are cited for that point. You may also use the Latin abbreviation CF, which means compare. For example, numerous writers have suggested that children in single parent households are at greater risk for academic underachievement than children from two parent households, e.g., see Adams 2012, Block 2011, Doe 2001, Jones 2012. Again, this tells the reader that there are a multitude of studies, and here you're picking your best few to start them off if they want to reference. There's no hard and fast rule on how many sources within a single point is too many. I would say use your best judgment, but I think 6 or 7 is probably as long as you would want to get before differentiating or using EGC to break up those long strings of sources. Guideline 15. If the results of previous studies are inconsistent or widely varying, have you cited them separately? So here's an example of the incorrect way to do it. Inconsistent results are cited as a single finding here. In previous studies, parental support for requiring students to wear school uniforms varied considerably, ranging from only 19% to 52%. Doe 2004, Jones 2005. 19% to 52% is widely varying, so we would want to cite these results separately when possible. So here's a revised version. In previous studies, parental support for requiring students to wear school uniforms has varied considerably. Support from rural parents varied from 19% to 28%, Doe 2004, while support from suburban parents varied from 35% to 52%, Jones 2005. Guideline 16. Have the critique reviewed by others. Other individuals, such as fellow students, can provide a fresh eye for catching mechanical and stylistic errors. When asking for a critique, it is especially important to ask those critiquing your review to mark any material that is unclear. Thank you, and as always, please feel free to email or ask any questions. Thank you.